It is Sunday, and I'm CJ, and I missed you guys last week. I'm sorry I wasn't around, but it's been a hell of a couple of weeks, and I just needed to drop out of the human race for a while, so that's what I did. But I am back, and this week we are talking about bottom dysphoria and growth on T, and holy shit, what's going to go on down there, because none of us really know, and it's terrifying. My bottom dysphoria is intense. I have it, and I can laugh about it at the moment, but that's because I'm not by myself crying into a pillow. But my bottom dysphoria is pretty bad, and I am so worried that being on T is going to make it worse, because these are all the changes and all the things that happen that I guess we don't talk about very often. I feel like it's one of those considerations that for the people who are on T, who are already at that stage, obviously you guys are a lot more involved and have thought about it a lot more, whereas certainly at the beginning of coming out and considering transition, it never even occurred to me that something could happen down there, which is both stupid and naive. I will cop to both of those things, but it is something that I think concerns me just because it's so uncertain, and we all know how well I deal with uncertainty. So I mean, at this point we're at the end of the week, so the guys have talked about what they've gone through with everything, and the ones on testosterone have spoken about their growth, and I'm guessing like everyone else has talked about how worried about growth we are. But it is something that I think is important that we talk about. And it's not something that we need to talk about in terms of oh, there's an answer to this. But I just think, I mean, anybody who knows me knows I'm such a big proponent of talking about when you feel doubtful. When you feel concerned about things, talk about it, because that's the best way to make sure all of the shit kind of goes away. Or it doesn't go away, but all of the shit is gone to a place that is slightly more easy to manage. All I have is concern about growth on T. And it comes down to all of those things that I already have a huge amount of anxiety about. For instance, down there isn't a great place for me anyway. And then there's the suggestion of what if you get intimate with somebody, or if you start, all of the sex things, not particularly, confident or on board with a lot of those. So we just end up in this never-ending cycle of it's terrible upon terrible upon terrible. I am being so tongue-in-cheek about this because the reality is it is one of those things that we have to face. It is absolutely not possible to say whether or not you'll be particularly hung down there, or maybe you won't be. I don't know what good would be for you, because we don't know. We're in a field right now of uncertainty, and things are changing and they're getting a lot better, and medical intervention, all of that. For those of you who are on board with medical transition and want to do it, it's incredible what can be done now versus what could even be done 3 or 4 years ago. But it is something that you have to explore. And so I would recommend, get out there. There's a ton of Tumblrs. Chase and Skylar Kergel, they run an FTM sex talk. It is one of those blogs that I found super handy because there was a whole bunch of stuff that people were going through that I hadn't even thought that I would have to go through, because it just hadn't occurred to me, and I hadn't read about it, and I didn't know as much as I should do. So it won't completely alleviate the worries, because the thing about it is so completely personal, and that's okay. It is okay that you have to kind of work it out and navigate it your own way. But in general, I'm with you. I think it's fair to say that whatever you're freaking out about, I'm also freaking out about it too. So if you ever want a sympathetic ear or anything like that, why don't you come get in touch, and we'll just have a little freak out circle together, and then we'll get over ourselves, because life is not necessarily that terrifying. So that's it. That's my advice for this week. My advice for this week is freak out with impunity and loudly, and then do something about it so that you're not just sitting in a little stew of terror. So I will see you guys next week, hopefully, and I hope you've all had a fantastic time. So as usual, all of the stuff, and I will see you then.